Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. Today is Sunday Positivity Night and episode number 243 in 243 days. Our Sunday night shows are always extra special, and we have an extra special guest with us tonight. Sapphire is here, who is our guest on episode number 64, one of the most memorable we've done in these 243 days, and she returns on a historic weekend. She's the author and poet whose book Push was made into the Oscar-winning Precious. She is on Twitter. Please follow her at MSSAPPH, at Ms. Saff, Ms. SAPPH. We'll talk to her about the pandemic. We'll talk to her about the fight for racial justice. We'll talk to her about her writing, about her poem, about her poetry, and much, much more. We want to hear from you on how you're feeling on this special day and special weekend. As you know, we are on the day after President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris spoke for the very first time. I can't tell you how special that is to be able to say that. We'll meet Sapphire in just a minute. Hello, everybody. I'm Sree. Thank you so much for being here. Please tag your friends and tell them about the show. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. So delighted to have you all with us. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto, don't plan your virtual event without talking to us. We've done events for 50 people and for 100,000 people. We bet your event is somewhere between those two numbers. And we are taking your questions and your comments for Sapphire. We want to know where you're watching from. We are able to do this show because of our fabulous producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. And you will be meeting Rose in just a few minutes as she joins me to ask questions. Tonight's guest is Sapphire, and we're so delighted that she's able to join us. She is going to be joining us via audio tonight, and so you'll hear her voice and the magic and power of her voice as we talk about the pandemic, we talk about the financial crisis, and we talk about the fight for racial justice. I want to show everyone the t-shirt I'm wearing. It's a picture of a young Kamala Harris. It says, "The first but not the last." And that's an allusion to what Shamala Gopalan, her mother, taught her. She said, you may be the first of many things, but make sure you're not the last to do those things. And she is now the first woman of color, the first woman to be the vice president-elect of the United States. And with that, let's bring on our show, Sapphire, the author and poet, whose book Push became the Oscar-winning Precious. And she's here tonight joining us from New York City. So happy to have you. Hello.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to tell you that this is a very special night. We wanted a special guest for this weekend, and we're so thrilled to have you back. You were here on episode 64. Today's episode 243, and that means almost 200 days have passed since you were on the show. And it also tells us that today we crossed more than another 120,000 or so cases in the United States. And so the pandemic, when we were talking, we were hoping that things would die down, but they've become worse. How is that even possible?
Well, it's possible because we had and we still have an administration in office who was denying the gravity of the situation because our leader in chief, the liar in chief, I call him, was aware that if he talked about how bad the situation was, that it would affect his chances for re-election. So he continued to deny and downplay the epidemic, and it cost us hundreds of thousands of people. You know, it's over 200,000 people who have died now, and that's just the official count. Many people were not counted who died.
It's so hard to even imagine this. And then you think of the numbers that if the election is a referendum on the president, 70 million people voted for him.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, and 55% of white women voted for him. So that tells us a little bit about the state of white feminism in America, which speaks to the real need for us to begin to form, you know, for women at least, to begin to form a more socialist-based feminist movement that is not just based on this old hand-me-down stuff from the suffragists. You know, we need to have a new feminist movement, because I don't see how we can really call ourselves be in communion with people who voted for Trump after his admitted sexual assault of women.
And so many terrible things that he has done. You are right. What would that new movement look like? We'll talk about that now. I'm sure we'll address that again, but let's get to it. What would that look like?
Well, that new movement will look a lot like women of color. It will look a lot like, hopefully, Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? It will look a lot like women like myself. It will look a lot like these, you know, it will look a lot like our board of ed school teachers. You know what I mean? It will look a lot like working women who want to be paid fairly, who want to be treated fairly, who realize they cannot separate their issues from the issues of the earth. They cannot separate their issues from global warming. They cannot separate their issues from a decent minimum wage. You know, that all of these things are interconnected, that it is not just about some one religion. You know, Christianity has one way of looking at the right to life and when life begins and all that. So, you know, this movement cannot focus on abortion, you know what I mean, at the cost of everything, you know what I mean. So we have to have a movement that is based more in the realities of working women, as opposed to a religious group who is anti-abortion, or a you know, white rich feminist group who is just abortion is the bee's knees, you know, the end of the world. You know, we can't live without it. So there has to be some coming together that is based on, I would say, the issues of wage equality. You know what I mean? So many women are trapped because of lack of wage equality. You know what I mean? So those are the things I'm looking at. And then when we do get in these jobs where we should have decent opportunities, and we're being sexually harassed, we're being raped in the military. So all of those things, I think, are things that we can, those are things that we can unite around, that can give us real power, you know.
Thank you, Sapphire. We are going to be talking about many aspects of this, but I want to tell you something that has stuck with me since we met almost 200 days ago when you came on the show. You were the only one who pointed out something that stayed with me. You said all our healthcare directives are saying, wash your hands, stay distant. But our native communities, there are so many places where there's no running water. And I still remember when you said that, it felt like a kind of, you know, I was taken aback by that, because it was a epiphany and an understanding of how we have treated Native Americans so badly. And then this week we learned that in multiple places, including the Navajo Nation in Arizona, 97% of the folks there voted for Joe Biden. and I saw a beautiful video of a Native American person who was driving. The car was stuck in traffic. He got out and was dancing to celebrate the end of Donald Trump. All of this is because I have now been paying more attention to this because of you. So tell me, please, what you're thinking about Native Americans and other marginalized communities. You did have President-elect Biden. Sorry,
one
go
of
ahead.
the things I'm really happy about is that when we look at someone like Vice President-elect Harris, people are saying Black and Southeast Asian, and they're talking about her multiple identities. And one of the things that really bothers me is often I will hear liberals, and I'm grateful they're liberals, but they will be trying to get to get woke, and they'll say something like the original sin of and the United States original sin, and you'll hear that a lot in the New York Times, and what they're talking about is slavery. Well, slavery was not the original sin. The original sin was a massive genocide that wiped out almost 90% of the Native American people on this continent. That was the first action was to wipe out. So much of the land, like Mississippi and all that, Mississippi was the land of the Choctaw. They were, in order to have those cotton plantations, those people had to go. So everywhere the white man came, he brought his Black slaves and servants and stuff. But there were men there before him, just like there were before 1948. There were people in Palestine. It was not a desert, that people just came and planted orange trees. So we have this a country built on, genocide. And then, then there is the slavery is horrendous, and it lasts for generations and generations, but it is not the first great wrong. So this country is built on two great wrongs. And I think that's kind of what, when I said it wasn't just the physical act, the physical deprivation of not having water. It was an awakening to the undercurrent of the oppression of the United States, because it's so upfront when we look at the video of George Floyd. It's so upfront, when we look at some of the horrendous crimes against Black people. It's so in your face. And part of the reason that this can happen because there's a precedent for it. There was a massive genocide here that allowed a mindset of racial superiority to take root, and therefore anything that came after is still being treated that way. And what happens with immigrant populations is people can come in and they can either wake up to what's happening, or they seek to join the oppressor, because either consciously or subconsciously they know how horrendous the situation is, and nobody wants to have that knee on their neck like George Floyd.
Thank you, and thank you again for helping awaken me to the plight of the Native Americans. And we talked about it on multiple shows afterward, and we'll continue to pay attention. And as I said, seeing that 97% number for the Navajo was brought me back to our conversation. I'm just going to read some of the comments that have been coming in. Abdul says, history made. Mary and Charles Cunnan Carroll are watching from New Jersey. Thank you so much for being here. They're great supporters of the show, and also our watchers on a regular basis. Jonathan Borstein has watched 243 episodes from the East Village. Erica Berg-Wolf says, love Sapphire. And I want her to know this is a brand new episode. She's joining us via audio, and that's why you're hearing it. So pretend this is a podcast and you're listening to her like in a radio show. And my mom is watching from Kerala in India. Hi, Amma. Love you very much. And Maria Rocca says, great to hear Sapphire, our neighbor. So that's
yeah, that's my sister.
Oh, but
my downstairs neighbor. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, hello, Maria, and thank you for joining us. Daryl says he's feeling inspired in Richmond Hill, Queens, where 2 South Asian women are running for city council. My dream of seeing only women rule the world is coming true. I think that's a good goal. You remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg was asked, how many women will she be happy having on the Supreme Court? And she said 9 out of 9. And so that was, I think, a lot of people hope the world will go, but I'm not holding my breath. Ashok Sharma says, great day for Americans as well as people across the world. I'm sure, Sapphire, you noticed like there was this collective excitement across the planet. It was almost like a dictator had been toppled or something like that.
It has been amazing. I mean, you know, I had friends call me up. People were weeping. This has not hit everyone equally. We have been ruled for the past 4 years by basically a madman. Some people have benefited from it. Some people have been destroyed. You know what I mean? People are having their health care cut. So this has been a horrendous rule. You know, he basically has you know, ruled this country. He has not obeyed the laws. He has tried to undermine the basic tenets of democracy. So he has emboldened races. He has told the Proud Boys, and they say it on their website. They say it in their little chat rooms. You know, we kill people. That's what the Proud Boys said. And he told the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. In other words, he's giving orders to his constituency.
Outrageous.
So we've had this for a long time, but it has not been emboldened. He has emboldened these people. He has enabled these people. He has said it's all right to be a racist. He said, you know, take off the gloves and go for it.
Yeah, and that is so upsetting. And again, to see that 70 million people thought that it was okay to vote for him. I want to bring on stage our friend Rose Horowitz, who is looking forward to talking to you about so many other aspects of this. But let me bring her on so she can say hello to you. Rose, hi, Rose. Can you, Rose?
Hi, Rose.
Hi, Rose. Can you hear me? She's muted, so when she unmutes herself, she will join us. So, Rose, say hello when you're ready, please. So, Rose is just muted. She's going to unmute herself. She's just going to unmute her phone. I mean, unmute her. There she goes. There we go.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. There we go.
Rose, say hello when you're ready, please.
Okay. Hello. Hi, Sree and Sapphire. Thank you so much for joining us.
Unmute herself.
I'm just very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Just 1 second. Rose, you need to turn off one of those other tabs where you're listening to us.
Hi.
We can still hear one of your tabs is on, Rose, somewhere in the back. Maybe you were watching it on YouTube or Twitter or something like that. One of those other tabs where you're listening to us.
Okay.
As soon as you turn it off, we'll bring you on. Thank you, Sapphire, for staying, and everybody for watching. Thank you for joining us. We're talking to the great Sapphire, author and poet. Her book Push was made into the Oscar-winning Precious. She's going to talk about her writing. Maybe we'll talk about one of her poems, or she'll read us one of her poems if we're lucky. So let's go back to Rose Horowitz, who is a co-producer of this show. She's also a journalist and the creator of the hashtag Women to Follow. So please follow Rose at Rose Horowitz 31, and you'll find Sapphire on Twitter at Ms. Saff, MSSAPPH. Go ahead, Rose.
Hi, Sapphire.
Hi, Rose.
Great to so great that you could join us, and a special night for us. We're gonna not do every night, so we wanted to be sure we could hear your voice, and I thought it would be uplifting. We thought it would be uplifting when all of us have been so exhausted watching the returns come in. And I unfortunately was up the night election night to see Trump come on at 2 a.m. to give his tirade.
Yeah, he's got to go. He's got to go. So I don't quite know how they do that. You know, we've never really had that type of difficulty having to physically remove someone, but we may have to physically remove him. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he'll be going on his own. You know, I think.
Can you mentioned to me that you wrote something new about COVID. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, I'd like to just also tell you about the project. It's called C19WP, and this was a group of young people who got together and decided to do something like the WPA project, where they, in the 1930s, where they went around and they asked different individuals to talk, to do videos and to write about their experiences just with COVID-19. So they asked me to write something. So I'm gonna read it to you right now.
While you're doing that, Sapphire, we're showing on screen the Pulitzer Center's C19WP project. So thank you for mentioning that to us.
Excellent.
So people are getting to see that right now.
Okay. So this is the piece that I wrote for them, and it's called One Ventilator and 3 Patients, a meditation on COVID-19 from downtown Brooklyn. The sirens wake me at 3 o'clock in the morning. The noise is horrible in its ceaselessness. At first, I think I'm dreaming. What it sounds like is a couple of ambulances are stuck in traffic and just leaning on their sirens. There's no going back to sleep, but I'm still not totally awake as I stumble to my window, a large 6 by 8 foot window that looks directly out onto the 6-lane north-south thoroughfare that is Flatbush Avenue Extension, downtown Brooklyn. When I look out the window, the sight is hallucinogenic. The whole avenue is lit up with ambulances. On one side of the avenue, they're screeching north over the Manhattan Bridge. On the other side of the medium, heading south further into Brooklyn. Not even on September 11th, when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center, did I see this many ambulances. And unlike September 11, when the ambulances raced for the most part to ground zero, these ambulances are lighting up Flatbush Avenue in all directions, north, south. Can there be this many people sick? This is the beginning. This is the first night the ambulances wake me up, but it will not be the last. Terror fills me. I first understand the seriousness of COVID-19 when I hear Angela Merkel addressing the German people. She cut through the obfuscating and criminally self-serving messages coming from the White House and the censored and blue-penciled messages coming from the CDC. Chancellor Merkel, who obtained a doctorate in quantum chemistry and worked as a research scientist until 1989, floors me when she says that the virus will affect 70 to 80% of humankind. This contrasted drastically with what the President of the United States, a serially bankrupt businessman who had a major source of his income from reality TV, say. He said, "We have it very much under control. It's going to disappear. One day, like a miracle, it will disappear." The president knew he was lying when he said this. The virus that would go on to kill over 200,000 people was spreading uncontrolled. 70 to 80% of humankind. I am in shock and traumatized. I'm checking in with a friend, a fitness instructor who, like many people, has lost his job due to the shuttering of the city's gyms during lockdown. He tells me he's been tapped to work in a hospital. I'm thinking, hey, this is good. He can get in there and do some physical therapy with the patients and pick up some change till he can go back to work. It's not like that, he says, Sapphire. What the hospital has hired him to do is work for the morgue, suiting up and transporting bodies from the morgue to refrigerated trucks. At one point, there were so many bodies, they ran out of body bags and had to use trash bags. One trash bag was pulled up over the feet, another pulled down over the head, and then the two bags were taped together around the waist. And these people were then ready for their last ride on this earth, many of them to unmarked graves. I am numb. A study done in 2018 detailing the effect of how police killings of unarmed Black Americans harms the the mental health of all Black adults. Each year, more than 300 Black Americans are killed by the police, and at least 1/4 of them unarmed. Black people are nearly 3 times more likely than white people to be killed by the police, and nearly 5 times more likely to be killed while unarmed. On average, Black Americans are exposed to 4 police killings in their state of residence a year. The mental health harm caused by police killings of unarmed Black people is nearly as large as the mental health struggles associated with diabetes. When I read this article in February 2020, George Floyd is still alive and we haven't lost John Lewis yet. In the first few months of the epidemic, New York was the epicenter, plagued by staggering death tolls, which peaked at more than 7 times normal, reported the New York Times. But Black and brown know that was an undercount. We see a Latina sister post a picture of her brother on Patch.com, and we hear her sobbing and screaming. He is having symptoms of COVID-19, but emergency room personnel sent him home to self-isolate and told him to come back in a week, but he can't breathe. Go home and isolate in your basement for 7 days and then come back and we'll test you. In 7 days, he's dead. EMTs will remove his corpse from his bedroom floor, but his death is not listed as a COVID-19 death because he was never tested. I try to imagine Trump or one of his children being sent home untreated to isolate in his White House bunker and told to come back in a week. In this pandemic, who lived and who died had a lot to do with the color of their skin, their income, and their ability to access medical services. I am angry. We are still hearing from the liar in chief that the virus will just go away, with the hot weather. There are people who really thought Trump was just stupid, which he is, because it's almost inconceivable that someone would mismanage and minimize the response to what many have called the direst situation the world has faced since World War II, because he didn't want to hurt his chances for re-election, which is what he felt would have happened if he had admitted how bad the COVID-19 pandemic was. I believe that if over 200,000 people if the 200,000 people now dead from COVID-19 in America had been young white men, Trump would have been brought up on criminal charges for the way he mismanaged this pandemic for his own financial and political gain. But it wasn't young white men. It was people who looked a lot like me, people who could have been me. I had a genuine fear of what would happen to me if I contracted COVID-19. I live in a Brooklyn zip code that is served by a safety net hospital. As I write this, a president who used voter suppression, collusion with foreign governments, and pandering to neo-Nazis and white supremacists, the lowest of America's low, to con his way into the White House, is being airlifted on my dime to receive some of the best health care on this planet for free, while he tries to dismantle what little health care Americans who are not rich have. He will not pay a dime for his health care. He will not be held liable for knowingly exposing hundreds of people at an event that is being called a super spreader event, which he held indoors at the White House. He will not pay. Many lawmakers at his super spreader event receive free health care. A doctor at one of New York's safety net hospitals, so-called because they serve the poor, spoke on condition of anonymity. when he recalled the night when he had 3 patients who needed to be intubated. When he called the intensive care unit, he was told there was only space for one. One man was in his mid-40s. The other 2 were over 70. The 2 in their 70s were left to die. Who lives and who dies? Who gets airlifted and who gets shunted aside? The hospital in my zip code is a safety net hospital. It is likely where I would have been taken if I got sick. It could have been me with a white man in a white coat deciding if I live or die. I am 70, the age of the 2 patients left to die. At the height of the pandemic, here in what was the epicenter, had I, who paid the taxes, that paid for the president to be airlifted to the hospital, that paid for his experimental drugs and his hospital stay, had I gotten sick, there's a real possibility I would have died on the hospital floor, been bundled into trash bags, placed in a refrigerated truck, and transported to a mass unmarked grave. I am enraged. George Floyd's death was one of the approximately 300 killings of Blacks by police each year. Where I grew up in Los Angeles, smoking Marlboro cigarettes and Cool cigarettes, there was a cigarette jingle for a popular brand of cigarettes that showed a bright-toothed white woman in a 1950s dress, and she is smoking a cigarette. This is before we know what the tobacco companies have known for years, that the cigarettes will kill us. The jingle under her suavely dressed body reads, "Let's smoke a lucky strike tonight." It is in Los Angeles in the 1960s, some members of the Los Angeles Police Department substituting the word kill for smoke and a nigger for lucky strike are recorded beginning their tour of duty singing, "Let's shoot a nigger tonight." There is a sense of thrill killing. These were not difficult encounters where cops were confused and up against the wall. This is a landscape where the police department in the 1960s is composed of white Southern transplants, hardcore racists who left the precinct to go on duty with the idea of murdering a Black man. I grew up with this litany of Black death, 50 years, name after name, autopsy report after autopsy report. Depression is beginning to set in. Then there's a rumbling outside my window, the window where I first heard the loud, obscene cacophony of ambulance sirens. There are thousands of people streaming down Flatbush Avenue Extension. They have taken over the street and completely stopped traffic. I open my window to the sound of whose streets? Our streets. Say his name. George Floyd. Say his name, George Floyd.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Sapphire, for reading that to us. For our friends who have just joined us, this is what she has been reading. It's from an important new collection, a project for the Pulitzer Center, Pulitzer Reporting Center. It's called One Ventilator and 3 Patients, a meditation on COVID-19 from downtown Brooklyn. And if you go to the pulitzercenter.org website, you will find this. It's the C19 Writers Project. She'll tell us again that this is similar to other efforts during the Depression to engage artists and writers and poets and get them writing. But everyone, please take a look at this project. Please take a look at the story. Please share it. This work is supported by BK Reader, Brooklyn Community Foundation, COVID-19 Response Fund, the National Geographic Society's COVID-19 Emergency Fund for Journalists, the Pulitzer Center on Crisis Reporting, and the American Medical Association. What an unusual combination. The commentary is part of the COVID-19 Writers Project, which captures a hyperlocal view of the coronavirus pandemic while examining the extent to which health outcomes are impacted by socioeconomics, education, and race. And all of you just heard Sapphire read this so beautifully. This is a haunting story that she has put together, bringing together the healthcare crisis, the financial crisis, and the racial injustice crisis. We've been trying to cover that every single day for 214 days, but she has done it so beautifully in this single story. Thank you, Sapphire, for reading it to us so magnificently and giving us a chance to hear your beautiful voice again. Folks, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments. Sapphire is with us via audio tonight, and Rose is going to ask her some questions. Thank you, Rose. Go ahead. Rose is going to unmute herself and then ask the questions.
Hi, Sapphire.
Hi, Rose.
How did you begin this essay that's so powerful? What made you begin the way?
It really was begun when the young woman scholar and organizer from this project called me. First she contacted my agent, and then she got in touch with me and asked me to be one of the voices in this. And I was already working on another project that I had a deadline on, so I told her, I couldn't do it right away, but I would try my best to make the deadline. And I just began to really think on this, and just, I wanted to reflect on, because I'm constantly reading, I'm listening to you guys, I'm taking in all this information, but I also wanted it to filter it through the eyes of a woman of color, through the eyes of an older woman, through the eyes of all the people that we are hearing about who have just been literally scraped off the street, the single people. I'm one of those people. I could have fallen down on my way to Target without any ID and gone into, breathlessness and been taken someplace and ended up in a refrigerator truck. Nobody would have known what happened to me. So, there's some deep gaps in the safety net, and we are all those, except for those who are at the very top, all of us are liable to fall through. So I really wanted to bring that element in. Then I wanted to bring in the historic. This has been going on. This murder of Blacks by the police has been going on all my life. You know what I mean? And this harkens back to slavery, when it was not a crime to, a Black person talk back to you. You could shoot them in the face and get on your horse and keep going. So that is the murder of Black people is a part of white privilege. It's part of their psyche. It's embedded in their psyche for many of them, and it's almost like it's something that is theirs. The rule of thumb. Where you could beat your wife as long as the stick wasn't bigger than your wasn't any thicker than your thumb. So oppression is part of what has the ability to oppress other people, is part of what has propped up this racist society, and it's part of what allows these deeply distressed white men to endure the oppression they're under, because they know they have someone who they can put their knee on their neck. You know what I mean? So I always try to write like I'm braiding hair. You're mixing all these strands together. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I was really trying to bring that together too.
And you're writing in the present tense.
Yes, it's happening. It's happening.
Yes. It's happening. So you start us on the sirens. And could you go back maybe to the part where the bags are being, there aren't enough body bags?
Yes, yes. Let me see where I.
Folks, while she finds it, anyone can go on to pulitzercenter.org and find this essay. Please find it. It's called One Ventilator and Three Patients, a meditation on COVID-19 from downtown Brooklyn by Sapphire.
Okay, so here it is, right here. It's a.
Thank you.
I'm relaying and also you should know that the friend who told me this signed a confidentiality agreement with the hospital not to speak about this. Okay.
Yeah.
So that I think that was an interesting thing. You know, he tells me he's been tapped to work.
And how many people do you think know this story?
Well, a whole lot know it now, right?
That's right. That's right.
No, whether or not we're still going to be friends, I don't know. But I told everybody. You know what I mean? I didn't sign a confidentiality agreement because this is one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Right.
Well, we have all those confidentiality agreements that were signed by women in every industry, and
exactly, and the harm that resulted for generations and generations. I think that the thing that really, the indignity of being put in the body in the trash bags is very painful for me. That there were so many dead bodies, they couldn't handle them. And he's tapped because he's a muscle man. He's a fitness instructor. So they went around finding strong, healthy, unemployed males and got them in there to start dumping these bodies. What really upset me was that many of these bodies were unidentified. They had to get them out of there. They got them in the trucks, and then from the trucks, many of these people were dumped in mass graves. Now, during 9/11, every time they would find a shard of bone, I was here during 9/11. They would be doing DNA testing, trying to find out who these men were, who these bankers were, and who these wonderful citizens were. And here, no effort was made. They couldn't ID the body in a couple of days. It just went from the refrigerated truck to unmarked graves. So we have no idea of who died. We also, in the case of where I talk about the young Latina sister just crying, her brother being sent home. Now this man died quite obviously of COVID, unable to breathe. But because he was not tested at the hospital, they sent him home to quarantine. When they came to take his body and go to the funeral home, they will just bury him. He'll be buried decently because he has family, but he still was not tested for COVID. So that means his death is not part of the count.
And it also depends what he is dying, because in New York City, in New York, we report that the health professionals are required that if they are tested for COVID, that they have to report it as a COVID, roughly. But in many states, there's no requirement to report the cause of death at all.
Right. Well, in this case, they couldn't. He wasn't tested. He died before he was tested.
Right.
So that means his death was undetermined. So when we say 200,000, there are many, many people who the number is much higher, Rose. That's what I'm saying. The number is much higher.
And now, let me just ask you, now that we're in in New York City, we don't have refrigerated trucks, but there are refrigerated trucks in Houston and other cities. Yeah. So we're just not hearing about those people in the refrigerated trucks as much as we were in New York City.
Exactly.
It was all at once, and it was new. It was like it was a big story and new. And now it's like, I think our doctor on our show, She's on Call, said there's now 1,100 people dying every day in the country, and that her opinion was, you know, that if everybody was wearing a mask, we might cut that by half.
Right. I believe that. I believe that. And I, you know, and I do recall the day, and it was, and I have it right here. It was July 13th, 2020. It's 5:18 a.m. I get the news that New York has 0 new cases.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible.
Right.
It's possible. And it happened. New York, 0 new cases.
Are you hopeful
so
that with...
I have to say it twice. You know,
yeah.
It's possible. It's possible.
Right. It didn't.
It's possible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look at what happened in New Zealand. It is possible. We can contain this. You know what I mean? But this guy turned this, you know, Trump turned this into a circus.
Are you hopeful that with...
It became a smokescreen to hide his inefficiency. So he turns it into a macho thing, you know. My thing is bigger than your thing. Is that don't be afraid of the virus. You know what I mean?
He was plenty afraid when he got sick, right?
He was terrified.
Yes.
He was terrified. You know what I mean?
And he had to show that he was really okay, so he went around in a limousine, to say, I'm really fine.
Yeah. He exposed the Secret Service drivers to his virus.
Mm-hmm.
The cars that they drive the president around are so encapsulated that nothing can get out. It's a closed system. So in order for that show of bravado, he exposed those men unnecessarily. You know, we've got to help him get out. We've got to send the moving trucks. We got to get Ivanka out. You know, we just got to get them out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even if we have to give them a little welfare or something. You know what I mean? Food stamps. They've got to go.
Get the SNAP program. Did you? Can I ask you when you know, have you been writing any poems? Do you have any poems? What you wrote in prose is poetry, but do you have any other work that you would like that we could have the honor of hearing and pleasure?
I've been looking through. I don't think that I have any poems right now that I want to share, although I've been writing them. What I have done is as a working writer, I've been working on an essay and some other things and some fiction, but I've been keeping a poetic notebook, which I especially kept throughout the months of I would start it in February, March, and April, and so I have a lot of that work that I need to take out the notebook and type up, but it's not really in a form that I can, because you'd asked me, we had a pre-call and you asked me to look for some stuff, and I couldn't really find anything that was ready to share right now. So
okay. I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we should, folks, for everybody listening, we have a few minutes left with Sapphire, the author and poet. She is being interviewed by Rose Horowitz, a writer and journalist and creator of Women to Follow, the hashtag Women to Follow. So please follow Rose at Rose Horowitz 31 and also follow Ms. Sapphire. She's at Ms. Sapp, MSSAPPH. And we should also note that next, I believe we have an anniversary coming up for the novel Push, right? Big anniversary. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, I'm very excited. In fact, that's what I've been working on. I've been working on this comprehensive afterword to the, who knew I wrote. Part of the reason I wrote Push was there were so many reasons, but one of the reasons I was a minority woman in a community where I was teaching, and we were being swamped by another virus, the HIV virus. And I wrote about the impact of that virus upon my community, the impact of sexual abuse, and just what it meant for these women to have a safe place. And now here we are again. people, Black and brown people specifically, being doubly impacted by this horrible virus. You know what I mean? This being a virus that is causing us to not be able to communicate with people. So we're having increased spousal and child abuse. People can't escape their abusers. So it's really, we're having, where every time you hear about we lose healthcare professionals, but we're losing the people who are dying the most. This is how the latest statistics are nurses. So our nurses, and these are Black and brown women. And so they are being exposed in the line of duty. They are dying at a higher rate than the doctors. Our cleaning people, all of those people, those are our people. Our bus drivers. So we're losing a tremendous swath of the middle class and the working class upon whom we depend, and upon whom I come from. Those are jobs that I've done. So I've been the elementary school teacher. I've been the cleaner. I've done all that, and so this is taken a great toll. So I'm trying to write this essay about 25 years ago and now, braiding those issues together, and we will have this new edition of Push will be out. There'll be an introduction by a young, popular Oprah pick author, Tayari Jones, who is just a wonderful young woman. So a new generation will be introducing the novel, and I will write this essay to talk about the issues as I have seen them in the past 25 years, and just the travesty of the administration, and not just the Republican administration. The Democratic Party was also very, very hard on women of color, on women of single mothers, punishing women on welfare, and this affected a whole generation of people, ending welfare as we know it, when we should have been increasing it because we know it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm writing about that, and I'm just really happy that this book in 25 years has never gone out of print. It's been translated into, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, French, So this 25 year anniversary is a special time for the book and for me as an author. I was a young woman, and I'm now, I'm now on another side of that divide. So I'm just very happy to have the opportunity to, for this new edition of the book to come out.
Thank you, and I'm so excited. It'll be the 25th anniversary next year. I'm sure. In addition to the special edition, there will be events, and looking forward to spreading the word about them next year. Susanna Spears tuning in and says, "Hi, Sapphire. It's Susanna from the Writers' Room, and then later Brooklyn College back in the early aughts." And, okay. And she says, "I was also horrified when he exposed his security guards to the virus." And a lot of the people who work in the White House, not just security guards, but the servers and others are people of color.
Exactly.
And there's just no empathy for any of these people. David Katz is watching, says, "That's my mom." He is Rose's son. And Jonathan Borstein says, "Wonderful and literate program. Thank you." So as we wrap up here, Sapphire, if you would give us some thoughts on what you're thinking about over this period, these holidays coming up. I know you have been very careful personally on how when you go out, what you do. Tell me about how you're handling this and what you're going to be looking towards.
I'm gonna be doing a lot of Zooming. I'm gonna be. I have some decorated. I have some masks that has sequins on them, so I'll be having my holiday mask on. I will be heightening my hand hygiene. I will be, doing a lot of gift giving via the mail, and try to get my local bookstores to send children's books to friends. So I'm gonna just be celebrating, because I wept for joy when Kamala Harris took the stage. I wept for joy listening to Biden speak. We have a lot of work to do. I mean, we can't tune out. So, but I'm looking forward to the work of healing myself and healing my country, and I believe in the spirit of Christmas, and of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and that we could turn this around, and we've got too many billionaires and too many people in the homeless shelter. We need to, I'll be listening a lot to Bernie. I'll be listening a lot to Bernie Sanders as he charts the way forward. I like what he had to say. We're a movement. It's not just about winning an election. We're a movement, and so. I'm feeling just better than I felt in a long time.
That is awesome. I can feel it in your voice. We got to speak once for my WBAI radio show as well. And we first spoke before George Floyd, and then your righteous anger at what happened with George Floyd was prescient in terms of how the nation would awaken. And then sadly, Sapphire, that uprising of racial consciousness was used against many of those cities, and was used against the very people who were protesting peacefully by this president. And that is some of the reason why they were able to get those 70 million people to vote for him, because they scared them and said, Black Lives Matter is coming for you, and horrible.
Exactly. And I think that's part of the work we have to do. We have to look at the fact that people got scared of these kids demonstrating, and they weren't scared when they looked at a murder. You saw a murder. You saw a man holler for his mama, "I can't breathe," and you saw him die in front of your eyes. They weren't scared of that. So So we have a lot of work to do, and it is, it wasn't a sweep. You know what I mean? Yeah. This was very close, even though it was incontestable. He did win. Biden did win, but there's been a hardening of and a taking of sides, and we have to start moving toward the middle, and we have to make life better for everybody in this country, and we have the resources, and I think now we have the will, and we can do it.
Yeah, I think those are great words for everyone who's listening to be inspired by you. I just want everyone to know that they can continue to follow your work on Twitter. Ms. Saff is her Twitter handle, the Sapphire's Twitter handle, and her books are available wherever you shop online, whether it's the big companies or the smaller ones, independent bookstores, etc. She has multiple books that you can get. When you go online, of course, most of the things that you see, Sapphire, are different language editions and different editions of Push, but they're, of course, the book The Kid as well, the novel, and then next year we're looking forward to that. But you also have more books coming out. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I have a big book called Harlem Trilogy, which follows several generations of African Americans from Mississippi up through New York and out of New York, and it just deals with a lot of different issues, and everything from the exploitation of the sharecroppers to the blues, and on to now, these people are young then, and then the horrific conditions that we're hearing about in nursing homes. So I'm really, I'm really trying to write in the way that Fannie Lou Hamer and John Lewis protested, and B.B. King and Big Mama Thornton sang. I'm trying to bring all that into my writing. You know what I mean? I'm a proud Black woman, and I, like many people in this culture, I have suffered, but I also triumphed. And so I want to bring that forth in my writing.
Thank you for sharing both your the times when you have suffered, but also your triumphs. I know that Rose has a final question, but I just want to confirm: are those books due in like 2022, or what is the timeline?
I'm thinking that, you know, we're going to try to we want to try to like leave a clear feel for the reissue of Push, and then, you know, right behind that we'll try to come out with the trilogy.
Great. So everyone, please stay tuned. You know, you'll be hearing from her when the reissue comes out of Push, the novel that became the Oscar-winning movie Precious. And I know Rose has a final question for you.
Hi, Sapphire. It's so inspiring to hear you. And I guess one thing that I thought maybe you could, it's a big problem we have, and so much time to regain in these 4 years. Although, as you point out, it's been since the start of the white man in America. But is there, you know, one of the things I tried to do with my hashtag Woman to Follow is to amplify the voices of women on social media, because we're always hearing, you know, because even women are following more men in social media than they are women. So what is one thing that you can think of that we could all be doing to try to move this process along?
Well, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm trying to read as much as I can. So I just, I just got on. I just was able to find a new biography of Fannie Lou Hamer on Kindle. I've been reading Isabel Wilkerson, her book on caste. This is the Pulitzer Prize winning author. So I've been trying to read as much as I can the work of Black women, and I've just been trying to just stay woke. You know what I mean? I think and at the same time, just trying to really listen. I mean, this pandemic really woke me up to what is going to be next for a lot of older people. You know what I mean? This is the nursing home. So I've got, other people have their agenda, but I plan to make sure that what happened in these nursing homes never happens again. This is horrendous. So I would say go with your own agenda. You know what I mean? If you're trying to deal with COVID in the healthcare community, go there. If you're trying to deal with women's rights, on the campus, or battered women, but go to where your heart draws you, and don't be afraid to do the work. Don't be afraid to get to be criticized, because they're going to criticize us anyway. So just do what it is that makes your soul speak, and that allows you to go to bed at night feeling good about yourself.
Well, thank you. That's really wonderful. And as a gardener, I always say you got to get your hands dirty. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it takes work, and no one's going to do it for you. And I think that one of the things that, I guess, Sree this morning on his New York Times program, somebody said it used to be that you could say you're not that interested in politics, but I think every voice has to be counted. Every voice has to be heard. And it's not, silence is, what's that? To be silent is to accept. And we have to fight.
Yeah, they say silence is assent when you don't speak up. So with that, thank you so much, Sapphire, for a wonderful evening. We're so grateful and so honored.
Thank you for having me again. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll let you
hear your voice.
Thank you very much.
Follow her on hashtag @Ms. MS SAPH.
They say PPH. Ms. Sapphire, yeah. And everyone, please check out. We'll tweet out the link to the Pulitzer Reporting Center's amazing essay that you just heard, and to be continued. Thank you very much, Sapphire. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Wow, she was amazing. Thank you so much, Rose, for connecting her to us again. And before we go, we want to read the names. We haven't had a chance to do that in a little bit, so we're going to do that now. You remember that we asked the great Kimberly Crenshaw, what can we do to support the voices of Black folks? And she said, simply say their name. So we're going to do that now. And thank you to all who will join us and support us as we say their names. This is the list we're using is from Time Magazine this summer. It was in June. It's hard to believe it's been so many months already. And you see these names on the border of this Titus Kaffir Time Magazine cover. On the right, you see a young Larsenia Floyd with her son, George Floyd. She would die 2 years almost to the day that he would be killed on camera, murdered in Minneapolis. They're now buried together in Houston. So, Rose, thank you for joining me in saying these names. I will read the first few, and then you can read, and then I will pick that up again, and we'll go back and forth. Of course, these are not all the names. These are just some of the names. And these are not even the names since the death of George Floyd. There have been multiple people since then, but it is important for us to say the names. And also, sadly, some of these are household names, and sadly, some of these are not. And that's also the role that public awareness and things like the media play in this. So let's say these names. Trayvon Martin, Yvette Smith, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Laquan McDonald, and Tanisha Anderson.
Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Jerame Reed, Natasha McKenna, Eric Harris, Walter Scott.
Freddie Gray, William Chapman, Sandra Bland, Darius Stewart, and Samuel Dubose.
Janet Wilson, Colin Rockmore, Alton Sterling, Philandro Castile, Joseph Mann, Terrence Crutcher.
Chad Robertson, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, and Stefan Clark.
Danny Ray Thomas, Antoine Rose, Baham Jean, Tatiana Jefferson.
Michael Dean, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. Thank you for joining us as we said their names, and thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Yeah, and thank you. You were great, Rose, as always. 243 days, as we were saying earlier. Our plan is to continue to do the daily shows through 250, and that's a nice round number. And we will come back and do shows maybe once or twice a week. But we're not going away. We are just going to try to manage the frequency of this, and then come to you. We're always looking for guest ideas. Rose and Vandana, we should wish Vandana a happy birthday. She's not here with us tonight because she is enjoying her day off and her birthday. And so please continue to email us, send us names and ideas for guests. We'd love to hear from you. And then we will continue to do stories, and we'll continue to do shows in the weeks ahead. And when we say women to follow, the hashtag, no bigger women to follow now than Kamala Harris. And here's a picture of her as a young girl, and the first but not the last. Her mother, Shamala Gopalan, who has died, she told her daughters that you'll be the first of many. You'll be many first, but make sure you're not the last. And she now becomes the second most powerful person in the country, the most powerful woman in American government history. Shocking that it's taken 100 years since the suffragists to have a woman, and then a Black woman and a South Asian woman. It's just an amazing week and amazing weekend. So grateful. Hopefully the shenanigans of Rudy Giuliani and President Trump will not get in the way of a peaceful transition. Rose, thank you for all you do for us, and you are just awesome. We also had a great show this morning of She's on Call, so we should just point out to folks that weekends are busy time here at Digimentors, and She's on Call. The episode was two psychiatrists, Dr. Jesse Gold and Victor Pereira Sanchez. Among other things, Rose does the live tweeting. Please check out the live Twitter feed, and please follow at She's on Call on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And then we also did a New York Times read-along, 5 years of the New York Times read-along with political strategist and consultant Jeffrey Plout, who has worked with many labor unions, foundations, including the Gates Foundation and others, as a political strategist and consultant. And a reminder that on Tuesday, we will be working on the Tarakani lecture series on the First Amendment rights, truth and trust, journalism post-election, a conversation with a panel of distinguished local journalists out of Rhode Island for the University of Rhode Island Harrington School of Communication and Media, and Dan Barry, the very well-known New York Times journalist. This is for the Tarakani lecture series. Just Google Tarakani lecture, and you'll be able to watch the live show at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. At 9 p.m. on that same night, we will play some highlights of the episode, and we'll be joined by Lori White Tarakani. She's the one who helped us interview Christiane Amanpour, speaking of women to follow, and Cheryl Wu Dunn and her husband, Nick Kristoff. And with that, we will say good night and goodbye to everybody. Rose, thank you very much.
Good night.
We'll say goodbye. It was great to have your son watching today as well.
He was on another live stream show that I think maybe finished at 9.
Okay, so he came over.
Yeah.
Manuel is watching from Spain. Fernando, former guest of the show, watching from Los Angeles. And Mark says, so sad. I'm hopeful we get to the point where no new names are added. Happy birthday to Vandana. I'm so glad our vice president wore her suffragette white. And Rose is such an amazing person. You have an awesome team, Sree. Thank you so much. That is all Rose and my team are. They are, in fact, terrific. Thank you very much, and we'll say goodbye.
Bye.